Central Plains, the Shennong mountain range. At dusk, the sunset blazed like fire, dyeing half the sky in burning crimson clouds. Deep within the vast mountain range, a prosperous town stood atop a towering peak, its buildings constructed along the mountain's natural contours. Broad terraces had been carved into the mountainside, and bustling markets had been built upon them, filling the ancient peak with the vibrant signs of human life. This was the ancestral land of the Yao Clan. Most of the people living here shared the same surname, Yao. However, there were also disciples from other families, descendants of recruited apprentices, distant relatives, and members of families connected to the clan through marriage. Regardless of their origins, anyone permitted to live within the Yao clan's ancestral land was considered a member of the clan. They shared an inseparable connection with the Yao bloodline, though they were generally classified as members of the branch families. The Yao clan was one of the 8 ancient clans. Taking medicine and alchemy as both its surname and its legacy, the Yao clan was unquestionably the greatest alchemy clan in the world. Even those who were not alchemists could speak knowledgeably about pill refinement. When it came to identifying and evaluating medicinal pills, few beneath the heavens could rival them. At the summit of the mountain stretched an enormous open plaza. In the center of the plaza stood a towering stone monument. Ancient and imposing, it radiated a solemn authority that seemed to gather the spirit of the entire clan around it. This was the clan monument, the symbol of the Yao clan's unity. The monument held extraordinary significance to the clan. Only the most outstanding descendants of the Yao clan were permitted to carve their own names and the names of their parents upon its surface. To the clansmen, there was no greater honor. As the saying went, to leave one's name upon the clan monument is to have lived without regret. Surrounding the monument were the clan's most important institutions: the Ancestral Hall, the Elders' Hall, the Clan Academy, the Treasury, and many others. Below the summit lay the inner district, where the direct descendants of the Yao clan lived. Farther down, around the middle of the mountain, were the residences of powerful and influential branch families. Columns of smoke and mist could be seen rising everywhere, carrying rich medicinal fragrances through the air. At the foot of the mountain lived the ordinary clansmen. The buildings there were far less elaborate, and looked no different from the streets of an ordinary city. On one such street, a group of children no older than 7 were playing a game of pill refinement. Although they were only playing, every movement they made looked surprisingly convincing. The alchemy formulas they recited under their breath were not childish inventions, but genuine refining incantations. The children were enjoying themselves when several tall figures approached from the distance. Their hearty laughter occasionally echoed along the street, while the setting sun stretched their shadows far across the ground. "Hey! Why are you still playing outside? It's time to go home and eat." The children immediately erupted in excitement and rushed toward them. "Father is back. Father, let me tell you. Yesterday, I refined a pill at the Clan Academy." The children's young voices quickly became loud and chaotic as they crowded around their returning fathers. The men laughed heartily, each of them grabbing his child and lifting him onto his shoulders. Among the children was a small boy of around 5 years old. Unlike the others, he remained unusually quiet, tightly holding his father's large hand. The warmth of that hand brought him a simple sense of happiness. "Chenner, what's wrong?" his father asked. "Were you naughty again and made your mother angry?" The boy lowered his head. "Mother is angry. She said she'll never speak to me again." He looked up anxiously. "Father, you'll help me make her happy again, won't you?" "Ha ha ha. Of course I will. Come on. The 2 of us will work together, and I guarantee your mother will make us something delicious." Yao Hua laughed as he lifted the boy and placed him upon his shoulders. "Old Hua, has your son been causing trouble again?" A muscular man approached them. Sitting upon his broad shoulders was a chubby boy who also looked around 5 years old. The man raised his eyebrows teasingly at Yao Hua. "Father, Yao Chen used Aunt Qing's favorite vase as a medicinal cauldron," the chubby boy loudly reported. Yao Hua's eyes twitched. "Ahem. Chenner, he isn't talking about that pair of blue porcelain vases, is he?" Yao Chen lowered his head miserably. His small hands moved restlessly across his father's hair. "Will mother really never speak to me again? Will she never make chicken leg rice for me again?" "So it really was those vases." The muscular man burst into laughter. You're finished, old Hua. Weren't those the first gifts you gave your wife? Yao Chen, prepare yourself for a beating. Yao Hua coughed awkwardly. Luo Bing, you bastard. Stop frightening my son. He patted Yao Chen's leg reassuringly. Don't be afraid, Chenner. Your father is here. I guarantee your mother will make you delicious chicken leg rice. The chubby boy suddenly shouted, Father, what is chicken leg rice? It tastes terrible. Go home and chew on steamed buns. Oh, steamed buns are the best. The chubby boy nodded as though he understood. Yao Hua looked at Luo Bing with disdain. Old Luo, you should find someone else. Your child is still so young. How can you bear to raise him alone? Luo Bing glared back at him. What do you know? Let's go. We're going home. Yao Hua laughed loudly. Let's go. Yao Hua and Luo Bing were clearly the leaders of the group. At Yao Hua's call, the other men laughed and carried their sons back toward their respective homes. Yao Hua and Luo Bing, however, were neighbors, so they continued walking together. The chubby boy's name was Luo Shu. He talked endlessly along the way. When he was not complaining about Yao Chen, he was exposing the misdeeds of his older brother, Luo Shan. However, every time Luo Shu mentioned Yao Chen, his eyes secretly drifted toward him. It was obvious that the little boy was only tattling because he wanted Yao Chen's attention. Yao Chen, however, paid no attention to Luo Shu's complaints. His father's shoulders were broad and comfortable. Everything would have been perfect if his mother were not angry with him. When father and son finally returned home, Yao Chen immediately jumped down from his father's shoulders. Mother, father is back. A beautiful woman emerged from the inner room. Her expression brightened with surprise, and her lips parted as though she were about to welcome them. However, her eyes shifted slightly when she noticed little Yao Chen anxiously peeking toward the kitchen table. The corners of her lips curved upward. She quickly concealed her smile and pretended to be angry. Humph. So you finally decided to come home. Yao Hua winked at Yao Chen. Hee, I'm hungry. Is there any chicken leg rice? The chicken leg rice made by my beautiful Qing is the most delicious food in the world. Isn't that right, Chenner? Yes. Yao Chen nodded rapidly. Mother's chicken leg rice is the best. One old trickster and one little trickster. Yao Qing snorted. And who is your beautiful Qing? Who else could it be but you? Yao Hua winked and reached out to hold Yao Qing, who was still pretending to be angry. His eyes were filled with affection. Father, I'm hungry. Yao Chen could no longer bear to watch them. As if agreeing with him, his stomach began to growl loudly. All right, that's enough. Dinner is ready. Yao Qing finally burst into laughter, her anger disappearing completely. She turned and led the father and son into the kitchen. Several large bowls had been placed upside down over the dishes on the dining table. The moment the bowls were removed, a rich and delicious aroma filled the room. Oh, mother is the best. Yao Chen nearly jumped with joy. You're supposed to say your mother is the most beautiful, Yao Hua said cheerfully. Women love hearing that. Mother is the most beautiful. Yao Chen learned quickly. You're going to teach our son bad habits. If I don't teach him a few tricks, how will he bring us a daughter-in-law someday? My son won't need tricks. Do you think he's like you? Hee, that's true. Yao Hua paused. Wait. Why does that sound wrong? Because I was tricked by you back then. Mother, how did father trick you? Yao Chen blinked and quickly seized the opportunity to join the conversation. He desperately wanted his mother to speak to him, for the young boy had truly believed she might ignore him forever. You want to know? Yes. I'll tell you when you're older. I'm already grown up. I've even started practicing the flame-building art. Yao Chen shouted indignantly. He jumped down from his chair and began performing a set of energy-guiding movements in front of his parents. His movements looked serious, but his tiny body twisted awkwardly from side to side, causing both his parents to burst into laughter. After dinner, Yao Qing naturally forgave Yao Chen for using her vase as a medicinal cauldron. The family then left their home and began walking toward the summit. The evening breeze felt cool and pleasant. Yao Chen ran freely along the mountain path while his parents followed behind him. The family's laughter filled the air. By the time they reached the summit, many clansmen were already strolling around the plaza surrounding the clan monument. "Come. Today, I'll take you somewhere special," Yao Hua said with a smile. "That was where your father first took your mother and—" "Yao Hua!" Yao Qing stamped her foot. 2 rosy clouds appeared upon her fair cheeks. "Hee, let's go. The sunset looks completely different from that place. If we arrive too late, someone else might take our spot." There was only one path leading to the clan academy at the summit. Every other route was sealed beneath layers of deadly restrictions, and anyone who trespassed without an official command would undoubtedly die. Yao Chen hurried along the mountain path as Do Qi circulated smoothly through his body. Since he had not yet learned any Do techniques, he could only follow the most basic circulation method of the flame-building art, guiding his Do Qi through every part of his body. As he ran, a strange sensation arose within him. He felt as though he was about to advance to the level of a 7-star Do practitioner. The feeling was incredibly mysterious. However, sensing an approaching breakthrough did not mean that advancing would be easy. The flame-building art was an extraordinary cultivation method. It allowed the younger generation of the Yao clan to build stronger foundations than most outside cultivators. It also made them far more sensitive to the art of alchemy, while strengthening their spiritual perception. Its benefits were numerous, but its weaknesses were equally obvious. Every time someone cultivating the flame-building art advanced by a single star, they needed to consume an enormous quantity of rare natural treasures. Even so, the cost was considered worthwhile. During a breakthrough, the cultivator absorbed the energy contained within those treasures. Their spiritual perception, fire and wood affinities, control over Do Qi, and physical resilience would all undergo a qualitative transformation. Nearly 70% of the Yao clan's members were skilled in alchemy. Even an ordinary iron guard selected at random might be a 2nd or 3rd-tier alchemist. Apart from the fact that most members of the clan possessed fire and wood affinities, the flame-building art they practiced from childhood deserved much of the credit. Among the many students of the clan academy, Yao Chen was not considered the most outstanding. At best, he could barely squeeze into the top 10. Whenever his performance slipped, his ranking would fall immediately. Each generation of the academy contained nearly 100 students, and 5 generations studied there simultaneously. Among almost 500 disciples, Yao Chen's position was neither impressive nor poor enough for the elders to abandon him. Most students who entered the clan academy came from struggling families or possessed weaker natural talent. Nevertheless, the elders responsible for teaching them never dared to neglect their duties. They followed the academy's rules and conscientiously guided every student placed under their care. That day's lesson was an introduction to alchemy. Compared with the familiar flame-building art, the prospect of learning alchemy immediately captured everyone's attention. Yao Chen's eyes shone brighter than anyone else's. He was not entirely unfamiliar with alchemy. His father was also an alchemist, and their home contained a medicinal cauldron that Yao Hua treasured more than almost anything else. Every time Yao Chen saw that cauldron, he felt an irresistible urge to try using it. His father had once told him that this desire came from the instincts carried within the Yao clan's bloodline. It was also a kind of natural talent. Laughing, Yao Hua had often praised his young son for possessing the potential to become an alchemist. However, Yao Chen was still young. His father believed that he should concentrate on cultivation first and wait for the academy's introductory lessons before formally studying alchemy. For the entire day, the academy taught the students the fundamentals of medicinal refinement. A completely new world unfolded before Yao Chen. Under the influence of flames, different ingredients produced entirely different reactions. Some resisted each other, some merged together, and others transformed into pills with countless unique effects. The elder responsible for teaching the introductory course was Yao Lao, the academy's chief elder. Alchemy was the most important discipline taught within the clan academy. Yao Lao had spent several decades teaching its fundamentals and possessed unmatched experience in instructing large groups of students. There was even a saying within the clan that, when it came to introductory instruction, some 6th or 7th tier alchemists teaching a single disciple might still be inferior to Yao Lao. Possessing great strength only proved that a person had remarkable talent. Teaching another person to become powerful was an entirely different ability. That was also why Yao Hua had not personally taught Yao Chen alchemy, and had instead waited for the academy to arrange his education. The result was an unquestionable success. Yao Chen developed an intense fascination with alchemy. As he listened to Elder Yao Lan's explanations, countless ideas appeared within his mind. Blood-staunching pills, blood-replenishing pills, and many other medicines occupied his thoughts. "All right, that will be enough for today," Elder Yao Lan finally announced. "Trying to absorb too much at once will only prevent you from understanding anything properly. Those of you who have the necessary conditions at home may attempt to refine a blood-staunching pill. Bring the results to the academy tomorrow, and I will evaluate them and give you guidance." Yao Lan smiled warmly. There were several promising seedlings among this generation's students. Their dou-qi cultivation might not compare with the well-supplied geniuses of the direct bloodline, but the difference between their alchemical talents was not necessarily so great. They still had bright futures ahead of them. Yao Lan ranked near the bottom of the clan's elder hierarchy, but whenever he looked at the talented children studying beneath him, he felt that every sacrifice he had made was worthwhile. Even when those children eventually became powerful figures capable of standing alone, none of them would call him master. He would always remain merely an elder of the clan academy. Yet he still believed that teaching them was the meaning of his life. "Elder, why can Yuan Han grass and seven flame grass be combined?" Yao Chen suddenly raised his hand and asked. "Should their medicinal properties not cancel each other out?" Yao Lan chuckled. "Yao Chen, the son of Yao Hua, correct? Very good. The fact that you can ask this question proves that you carefully remembered everything I said. A strong memory is one of the foundations required by every successful alchemist. Yuan Han grass and seven flame grass do indeed possess opposing properties. However, our Yao clan has a special method that allows them to achieve an unusual form of fusion. I will explain the details tomorrow. All of you should think carefully about this question after returning home. I will ask you about it during tomorrow's lesson." Yao Lan nodded with satisfaction. Even if Yao Chen had not asked, he would eventually have introduced the question himself. Now that a student had raised it naturally, the transition was even smoother. Several talented disciples who had previously remained calm suddenly revealed competitive flames in their eyes. Competition encouraged faster improvement. Yao Chen, however, cared little about competing with anyone. His entire mind had already become immersed in the new world of alchemy. He passed through the remaining dou-qi lessons in a daze. The rest of the academy day felt like torture, and as soon as evening arrived, he rushed home. "Brother Chen, where are you going?" the chubby Luo Shu shouted. "Didn't we agree to see what the little princess of the demon clan looks like?" The boy stretched out his arm but failed to stop Yao Chen. That morning, they had heard that a demon saint had arrived at the Yao clan with a young princess, apparently seeking medicine. Luo Shu had no interest in the overwhelmingly powerful demon saint. The little princess, however, sounded extremely intriguing. What did a princess of the demon clan look like? Had she retained some of her beastly characteristics? Did she still resemble a magical beast? Yao Chen had already forgotten everything about her. His thoughts were entirely occupied by alchemy. After returning home and greeting his mother, he rushed directly into his father's refinement chamber. Yao Hua was a fourth-tier alchemist. That was not considered especially powerful within the Yao clan, but neither was it weak. His refinement chamber always contained a large collection of medicinal ingredients, more than enough to refine pills below the third tier. In the past, Yao Chen had not understood alchemy. He had merely pestered his father until he learned how to identify various medicinal ingredients. Now that he had received Elder Yao Lan's instruction, he could hardly wait to attempt refining a pill himself. Even so, he did not neglect his daily foundations. Following his usual routine, he sat within the refinement chamber and circulated his dou-qi through 3 complete cycles. Only after finishing did he open the medicinal cauldron and begin gathering ingredients. His first objective was the blood-staunching pill. The medicine elder Yao Lan had instructed them to refine. It was a first-tier pill and one of the most common medicines used to treat external wounds. Unless a major artery had been severed and caused massive blood loss, the pill could rapidly stop most forms of bleeding. The blood-staunching pill was a basic medicine, so its refinement was not particularly complicated. The main difficulty came from maintaining the alchemical flame, which required a continuous supply of dou qi. With the strength of only a 6-star dou practitioner, Yao Chen found the task somewhat difficult. He exhausted nearly all his strength before finally producing a single pill. An entire batch of ingredients had yielded only one pill, and its surface was darkened. The black coloration made it obvious that the residual toxicity was extremely heavy. Yao Chen did not need an elder's evaluation to understand that it was a failed pill. He stared blankly at it for a moment. Then he carefully recalled the obvious mistakes he had made, sat down cross-legged, and began restoring his dou qi. After half an hour, his dou qi had finally recovered. Without hesitation, Yao Chen gathered another batch of ingredients and placed them inside the cauldron. He circulated his dou qi and began refining again. The materials required for a first-tier pill were not valuable within the Yao clan, so he could practice without worrying about wasting them. His second attempt was noticeably smoother, although his control remained somewhat unstable. A muffled rumble emerged from the cauldron. When the lid opened, 3 blood-staunching pills appeared inside. Their surfaces were red, but several strands of black remained mixed into the color. Those dark streaks represented residual toxicity. Even so, they were far better than his first pill. Yao Chen's eyes brightened. Using the last of his dou qi, he removed the pills and carefully placed them inside a porcelain bottle. He was not satisfied. Once again, he sat down and began recovering his dou qi. To him, the process of pill refinement was endlessly fascinating. Sensing the medicine gradually take shape inside the cauldron beneath the guidance of his dou qi was an indescribably wondrous experience. Before Yao Chen could begin his third attempt, his mother's voice came from outside. "Yao Chen, it is time to eat." "All right. Where is Luo Shu?" Yao Chen suddenly remembered the agreement he had made with the chubby boy. He went to see the little princess of the demon clan. Yao Qing laughed. Her son was already interested in seeing beautiful girls despite his young age. He truly was growing up. "Why did you not go with him?" "I forgot." Yao Chen scratched his head and answered with an innocent expression. Yao Qing did not know whether she should feel relieved or worried. At 13 years old, boys were usually beginning to develop an interest in girls. The fact that he could forget something like this entirely was rather unusual. On the other hand, remaining unaffected by girls and concentrating on cultivation was not necessarily a bad thing. "Mother, I have finished eating. I am going to practice cultivation." For the first time in his life, Yao Chen ate at astonishing speed. Within only a few moments, he cleaned his bowl, stood up, and vanished back into the refinement chamber. Yao Qing finally began to feel genuinely concerned. Was her son's emotional awareness too poor? Perhaps she needed to speak with Yao Hua. He should not discuss nothing but cultivation with their son. Occasionally, he needed to talk to the boy about matters between men. After all, Yao Qing had married Yao Hua largely because he knew how to speak charmingly. She believed he should pass that particular strength on to their son. She was not worried about the present, but she had to consider the future. Within the Yao clan, good girls needed to be promised early. Those who waited too long might find that all the desirable candidates had already been taken. Yao Chen had not yet discovered what was so appealing about girls. In his opinion, they were delicate, easily frightened, and always made an enormous fuss over the smallest matters. What use were they? They were troublesome. His mother was naturally an exception. Alchemy was far more interesting. After returning to the refinement chamber, Yao Chen resumed producing blood-staunching pills as soon as his dou qi recovered. Every batch was more perfect than the previous one. By the 7th refinement, he had completely lost interest in the blood-staunching pill. His last 2 batches had both been perfect, and the medicine no longer offered any challenge. A new pill formula appeared within his mind. The Qi Recovery Pill. He had seen the formula in his father's refinement notes. The pill could restore dou qi within a short period. Restoring dou qi. The greatest limitation on Yao Chen's refining efficiency was his cultivation as a mere 6-star dou practitioner. If he could rapidly recover his dou qi, he would have far more time to practice alchemy. The qi recovery pill should become his first priority. Once the idea entered his mind, Yao Clan acted immediately. He quickly adjusted his condition and reviewed the formula once again. Yao Clan possessed an almost photographic memory. In truth, this was considered a basic ability for an accomplished alchemist. Some people developed such memory later in life. Once their spiritual perception became sufficiently powerful, their ability to remember things naturally grew extraordinary. Others were simply born with it. Yao Clan's first attempt to refine the qi recovery pill failed without surprise. It was a complete failure. The ingredients never even formed the rough shape of a pill. Every material placed inside the cauldron was reduced to a pile of useless medicinal residue. Yao Clan stared at the remains in confusion. It felt as though he had made a mistake at every single step. Most people who suffered such a thorough failure would put the matter aside for a while before attempting it again. Yao Clan was different. A deep stubbornness existed within his bones. He gritted his teeth, restored his dou qi, and hurried to gather another collection of ingredients. Then he began a second attempt. A soft, smothered sound emerged from the cauldron. It was not even a proper explosion. Thick black smoke poured from the top of the medicinal cauldron. This time, not even residue remained. There was only a sharp and unbearable stench. Cough. Cough. Yao Clan coughed violently and hurriedly activated the ventilation mechanism built into the room, forcing the smoke outside. Disappointment finally appeared within him. However, his desire to succeed had not faded because of his failures. Instead, it grew even stronger. Which step had been wrong? Or perhaps he had done everything correctly but had failed to control the degree. At that time, Yao Clan did not know that an ordinary qi recovery pill was usually a first-tier medicine. The formula recorded within his father's notes, however, was an improved second-tier formula. It was not something a child who had only received a single day of introductory alchemy instruction could possibly refine. Many of its steps involved Yao Hua's unique techniques. Without detailed personal guidance, success was virtually impossible. Yao Clan continued experimenting until midnight. Only when his dou qi could no longer recover and his mind felt so exhausted that even breathing became difficult did he reluctantly stop. His spiritual senses had become so strained that he could barely perceive the medicinal ingredients. Forcing himself to continue would only waste materials. Helplessly, he washed himself, swallowed one of the body-tempering pills his father had prepared for him, and lay down on his bed. The instant his head touched the pillow, he fell into a deep sleep. Even while sleeping, however, Yao Clan's fingers continued moving gently. Faint traces of dou qi shifted before his chest. He was still refining medicine within his dreams. The following morning, Yao Clan did not bring the blood-staunching pills to the clan academy. In his opinion, although he had successfully refined the blood-staunching pill, his attempts at the qi recovery pill had failed completely. Forget residual toxicity, he had not managed to form even a single pill. Elder Yao Lao had originally paid considerable attention to Yao Clan. A student capable of asking why Yuan Han grass and seven flame grass could be combined should possess remarkable talent. Yao Clan might even be the most gifted alchemy student of his generation. However, when Yao Lao saw that he had not brought a blood-staunching pill, disappointment appeared within him. Yao Clan's father, Yao Hua, had also graduated from the clan academy, and Yao Lao still remembered him. Yao Hua's talent for alchemy had been exceptional. Unfortunately, his cultivation talent had been somewhat lacking. Without sufficient clan resources, his alchemical gift had gradually been buried. It was regrettable, but geniuses had never been rare within the Yao clan. If one talented person was overlooked, countless others would eventually rise. Even if Yao Hua's talent had gone to waste, his home should still contain a refinement chamber. Yao Clan clearly possessed the conditions necessary to practice refining a blood-staunching pill. A perfect pill. On which attempt did you succeed? Elder Yao Lao began evaluating the student's work. The first student was Yao Tong, the strongest dou qi cultivator of their generation. He was already a 7-star dou practitioner and had selected the foundational cultivation method he would use for his next stage. Reporting to Elder, I succeeded on my third batch, Yao Tong answered respectfully. Not bad. Yao Lao nodded calmly without offering further praise and turned to the next student. 30% residual toxicity. Barely acceptable. You need better control. When separating the impurities, pay closer attention to the cauldron's temperature. Nearly every student had attempted at least one batch. Even the least successful student had brought a blackened waste pill. Eventually, Elder Yao Lao stopped before Yao Chen. Although the boy had produced nothing, the elder could not suppress his concern. Yao Chen, what about you? Yao Chen lowered his head. I failed. In his mind, the blood-staunching pill and chi recovery pill were both pills of the same general level. Rather than reporting only his success, he chose to reveal his failure. Perhaps the elder could help him understand what had gone wrong. Failure. Yao Lao smiled encouragingly. Where is the pill? Let me examine it and help you determine the cause. Failure is not frightening. Losing your confidence is what you should truly fear. Yao Chen lowered his head even further. Reporting to elder, it never formed into a pill. Yao Lao froze. How was that possible? From what he had sensed, Yao Chen's alchemical talent should have been quite good. At the very least, it should not have been much worse than Yao Hua's talent in his youth. Do not worry, Yao Lao said after coughing awkwardly. Do not give up. You will eventually succeed. He offered another few words of encouragement before beginning the day's lesson. The instructions still covered the most basic foundations. They analyzed medicinal properties, studied how different properties complemented or opposed each other, memorized classic reactions between ingredients, learned how to control the temperature of a medicinal cauldron, practiced manipulating ingredients through subtle do-qi techniques, and studied how to shape a pill. In terms of personal alchemical achievement, Yao Lao was only a fifth-tier alchemist. However, when it came to teaching children the foundations, perhaps only a handful of people in the entire Yao Clan could compare with him. He possessed a unique ability to place vast and complicated knowledge into the minds of children with effortless clarity. At first, Yao Chen remained embarrassed by the previous night's failure. As the lesson continued, however, he experienced one revelation after another. So it could be done that way. There were methods of reducing do-qi consumption. There were also special control techniques resembling do skills. By incorporating those methods, refinement would not only become easier, but the chances of successfully forming a pill would increase dramatically. The moment the clan academy ended that afternoon, Yao Chen rushed home again, burning with impatience to resume his experiments. Luo Shu had barely raised his hand before Yao Chen disappeared like a gust of wind. What was wrong with him? How could he forget so completely about seeing the little princess? The princess was truly beautiful. Luo Shu had even spoken to her and promised that he would return today with his friend. Now Yao Chen was making him break his promise. Still, going alone to see the princess might not be so bad. A foolish grin appeared on the chubby boy's face. When Yao Chen returned home, his mother was absent. She had left a note explaining that she had gone to gather medicinal herbs. Dinner had been prepared that morning and merely needed to be reheated. Yao Chen did not bother with the trouble. He ate a few cold mouthfuls and rushed into the refinement chamber, where he once again began experimenting with the chi recovery pill using his father's medicinal cauldron. The new techniques produced an enormous difference. The cauldron's temperature rose quickly, saving a considerable amount of do-qi. The medicinal ingredients also fused smoothly inside the cauldron. Everything became wonderfully harmonious. A strong intuition arose within Yao Chen. This attempt might produce a perfect pill. It was more than intuition. According to his spiritual perception, the ingredients were indeed advancing toward a flawless formation. The process reached its final stage. At that moment, a blood-colored radiance suddenly rose from the medicinal cauldron. The crimson light descended into the furnace and instantly contaminated the ingredients that were forming beneath the combined influence of intense heat and do-qi. Boom! A deafening explosion shook the room. The cauldron had exploded. Crack! Yao Chen's face turned white. The force of the explosion sent him flying backward and slamming into the wall. Cough! Cough! He coughed violently and felt intense discomfort within his internal organs. Yao Chen hurriedly swallowed several of the blood-staunching pills he had refined the previous day. Their medicinal energy transformed into a cooling current that spread through his body, gradually easing the pain. He immediately rushed toward the medicinal cauldron. It was his father's most treasured possession. At that moment, Yao Chen wanted nothing more than for the explosion to have left it unharmed. One glance was enough to drain the remaining color from his face. Several deep cracks had appeared across the cauldron. The sight was horrifying. He was finished. This time, he was truly going to be beaten. If there was one thing Luo Shu admired most about Yao Chen, it was that Yao Chen had never once been struck by his father. Luo Shu, by contrast, was the kind of child who would start tearing tiles from the roof if he went 3 days without a beating. As Yao Chen stared at the deep cracks, his heart turned cold. He was doomed. Yet for some unknown reason, his fear of punishment was suddenly joined by an ominous sensation. Boom! A thunderous sound erupted from the courtyard. It was so loud that even the soundproofing within the refinement chamber could not block it. Yao Chen's heart jolted. The ominous feeling grew heavier. He remained stunned for a moment before scrambling to his feet and rushing outside. As soon as he opened the door, he heard a confused mixture of hoarse voices coming from the courtyard. When he reached the yard, he saw a large crowd gathered together. Yao Chen is here. Yao Chen. The moment the crowd noticed him, everyone suddenly fell silent. Without being asked, they moved aside and opened a path. A terrifying chill spread through Yao Chen's heart. His body trembled, and his footsteps became unsteady as he slowly walked forward. The ominous feeling instantly transformed into the reality he least wanted to see. His father. His gentle and humorous father, who could always make the entire family laugh. The father who had so often carried him upon his shoulders. Yao Hua lay upon the ground. His face was deathly pale, his entire body was covered in blood, and his eyes were tightly closed. Uncle Luo Bing and the rest of Yao Hua's companions crouched or knelt nearby with grief-stricken expressions. Some pulled desperately at their hair, while others covered their faces with their hands. Yao Chen. We encountered. Luo Bing bit his lip but could not finish speaking. As iron guards who carried out missions for the clan, they had always been prepared to sacrifice their lives. However, when that cruel possibility became reality, none of them knew how to respond. That was especially true when they looked at Yao Chen's young and innocent face. Judging from the injuries, it seems like the Hall of Souls. Quiet. You cannot say something like that carelessly. What a pity. Yao Hua's true talent was clearly alchemy, but he insisted on becoming an iron guard. Now look at him. With injuries like these, even if he survives, he will probably become a cripple. Bastards! What are you saying? Several of Yao Hua's companions leaped to their feet and glared furiously at the people speaking. Do not become angry. We meant no harm. Yao Chen, where is your mother? Yes, where is Yao Qing? The people discussing Yao Hua's condition were neighbors who lived nearby. After realizing how inappropriate their words had been, they hurriedly stepped backward and changed the subject. Yao Chen's entire body trembled. He stared blankly at his father lying on the ground. The color of blood. It was terrifying. Cough. Yao Hua's body suddenly trembled. His tightly closed eyes slowly opened. Old Luo. I am here, Old Hua. I am right here. This smell is familiar. Have we reached home? Yes. You are home. Yao Hua gave a faint laugh. Chana. Father. The moment Yao Chen heard his father calling for him, the tears he had been holding back burst forth. He threw himself forward. Did I frighten you? Yao Hua asked. A man should not shed tears so easily. But the blood. There is so much blood. If you are a man, you must not fear blood. Come closer and let your father touch you. Yao Chen hurried nearer and tightly held his father's hand. Only then did he notice that his father's pupils showed no reaction. Father, your eyes. I temporarily cannot see clearly. It is nothing serious. Yao Hua's cheek twitched. Nearby, Luo Bing could no longer suppress his grief. 2 streams of tears rolled down his face. He knew that Yao Hua's injuries were extremely severe. The fact that he had returned to the Yao clan alive was already a miracle. Every word should have caused him unbearable pain. He should only have been able to speak in short, broken fragments. Yet when facing Yao Chen, every word Yao Hua spoke was clear, and every sentence remained smooth. Old Hua, you need to rest. I am fine. Yao Hua smiled and gently touched Yao Chen's face. The boy felt his father's hand brushing against his skin and desperately tried to stop his tears. Father, you will recover, will you not? Heh. Yao Qing is back. A shout came from outside the crowd. The people quickly opened another path. Yao Chen raised his head. His mother, dressed in simple cloth clothing, threw down the herb basket she had been carrying and rushed toward them. Brother Hua. Yao Hua laughed weakly. Letting you see me in such a miserable state has completely ruined my dignity as a man. Stop speaking. Who did this? Yao Qing raised her head and looked toward Luo Bing. It was an ambush, Luo Bing answered. The attackers used 3 different methods. One resembled a technique of the Han clan, another belonged to the Gu clan, and the third came from the Demon clan. We do not know who was responsible. Luo Bing had bitten his lip until it bled. The most unbearable part was that they did not even know whom to seek revenge against. Fortunately, all of them had managed to return. However, as he watched his closest brother lying there in agony, Luo Bing would rather have suffered the injuries himself. That is enough. Everyone should leave, Yao Hua said. I do not want to spend the entire day lying on the ground. Cough. He forced a smile and pulled gently at Yao Qing's hand. Making things difficult for his brothers would solve nothing. Yao Qing drew a deep breath and nodded. Seeing this, Luo Bing carefully lifted Yao Hua and carried him into the bedroom with the gentleness of someone handling fragile porcelain. Yao Hua smiled faintly. I am not made of porcelain. Do not worry. In a few days, I will be a strong man again. Go home. Seeing the smile on Yao Hua's face, Luo Bing forced out an expression that looked little better than crying. Then he said farewell and left. Once everyone had dispersed, 2 clear streams of tears appeared on Yao Qing's face. I will ask an elder to heal you. Someone already examined me. Yao Hua shook his head slightly. Otherwise, how could I still be lying here and speaking? Yao Qing placed her fingers against his wrist and examined his pulse. After a moment, she exhaled. Your internal organs are badly injured. I will refine some healing pills for you. Yao Chen, come help me. Mother. Yao Chen stood blankly by the doorway. The moment he heard that she needed to refine medicine, his mind went empty. Their family owned only one medicinal cauldron. He had just destroyed it. Come. Mother, I did not do it deliberately. Yao Chen gritted his teeth. I accidentally destroyed father's medicinal cauldron. I did not mean to. I truly did not mean to. Yao Qing froze. The medicinal cauldron had been destroyed? The thought struck her mind like a hammer. Heat rushed into her cheeks, her throat tightened, and her body swayed as darkness briefly filled her vision. What? What did you say? Yao Chen lowered his head as far as he could. Never in his life had he regretted anything so deeply. I was refining medicine. The cauldron exploded and cracked. You! Slap. Yao Qing struck Yao Chen across the face. Yet the person who felt the greatest pain was herself. She stared blankly at her own hand, not understanding why she had raised it. However, when she looked at Yao Hua, the man who had always protected her, lying helplessly upon the bed, her thoughts had already fallen into chaos. She was the one who felt most lost. Everything she had displayed before the crowd had been a disguise. She simply did not want anyone to see her weakness. Yao Hua coughed from the bed. Qinger, it was only a medicinal cauldron. The child is innocent. I am fine. But it was your favorite. Yao Qing tried to justify herself. Yet she knew that, regardless of the circumstances, she should not have struck her child. She did not know why Yao Chen had caused a 3rd-tier medicinal cauldron to explode, but she understood her own son. He was not a mischievous or careless child. In the past, she had even worried that he concentrated too much on cultivation and lacked emotional awareness. If the medicinal cauldron had exploded while he was earnestly practicing, then perhaps its time had simply come. Qing'er I. Yao Hua smiled. He sensed his wife's confusion and was about to comfort her. At that moment, a strange force suddenly erupted inside his chest. A twisting energy penetrated his internal organs. and the injuries that had gradually stabilized exploded once again. Blood burst from his mouth and sprayed across the bed. Brother Hua. What is happening? Twin in life-severing palm. Yao Hua forced the words through his clenched teeth. Then he could endure no longer and lost consciousness. Twin in life-severing palm. Yao Qing's expression changed dramatically. A victim felt nothing when first struck by the technique. If the hidden palm force was discovered immediately, it could easily be expelled. However, if no one detected it, a seed of sinister Do Qi would remain concealed inside the victim's body. After a period of time, the hidden force would erupt without warning. By then, treatment would already be extremely difficult. Panic filled Yao Qing, but she forced herself to remain calm. She quickly opened a hidden compartment beside the bed. Inside were numerous pills and several precious medicinal ingredients. Yao Hua had accumulated them over many years and originally intended to use them for Yao Chen. At that moment, however, nothing else mattered. Yao Qing steadied herself and separated every healing pill and medicinal ingredient according to its effects. She fed them into Yao Hua's mouth in a precise order. When he could not swallow, she pressed her lips against his and forced the medicine into him. After a short while, the medicine took effect, and Yao Hua regained consciousness. This time, however, although his mouth moved, he could not produce a single word. Only his eyes shifted faintly. He remained conscious for barely a moment before blood began flowing from the corner of his mouth again. Yao Hua no longer possessed enough strength to cough it out. The blood simply overflowed from his lips and covered his mouth and nose. Quickly turn your father onto his side and let the blood flow out. Yao Qing's fingernails dug deeply into her palms, drawing thin streams of blood. I am going to ask the clan chief for help. Stay here and watch your father carefully. Do not let his own blood. She could not finish the sentence. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she desperately refused to let them fall before her son. She had to remain strong. The more desperate the situation became, the less she could allow herself to collapse. Young Yao Chen nodded forcefully. His small hands tightly supported his father. His body trembled, his legs shook, and an icy fear seeped through his clenched teeth. Yao Qing rushed outside. The twin in life-severing palm had earned its name because it truly pursued the victim's life. It could not be treated by ordinary medicines. Only a healing pill of the 6th tier or above might offer a chance of survival. Within the Yao Clan, 6th tier pills represented a dividing line. Pills below the 6th tier were plentiful. The clan could produce nearly as many as it desired. Every pill of the 6th tier or higher, however, was an extraordinarily precious treasure. Only the clan chief and several core elders possessed the authority to distribute them. The sunlight felt painfully bright. Yao Qing's mind became slightly dazed. Since leaving home that morning, she had eaten only a few flat cakes. While gathering herbs in the mountains, she had also caught a chill. She had originally planned to prepare a medicinal bath after returning home. She bit her tongue and forced herself to remain awake before rushing toward the clan chief's residence. Yao Hua had served as an iron guard for more than 10 years and had made numerous contributions to the clan. He was also a 4th-tier alchemist with considerable talent and a promising future. The clan chief could not possibly refuse to save him. If the clan abandoned a loyal clansman after years of service, how many ordinary members would become disheartened when the matter became known? Yet the affairs of the world were unpredictable. Unexpected misfortune always arrived at the worst possible moment. The clan chief is absent. Return home. Absent. Yao Qing fell to her knees before the chief's residence. Where has the clan chief gone? The situation she feared most was not being rejected. It was being unable to find the person with the authority to help. Insolence. Is the clan chief's location something a person like you is qualified to question? The gatekeeper became furious, believing that Yao Qing doubted his words. At that moment, Elder Yao Lao happened to pass nearby. After seeing the scene, he quickly approached. What is happening? Elder Yao Lao, it is not that I refuse to help her, the gatekeeper explained with a slight bow. The clan chief truly is not here. He could not reveal the chief's whereabouts. That is enough. I understand. You may return to your post. Yao Lan turned toward the kneeling woman. Yao Qing, correct? Why are you seeking the clan chief? Elder Yao Lan. Yao Qing hurriedly explained that Yao Hua had been struck by the twin Yin life-severing palm. He is in mortal danger. Unless we obtain a 6th-tier pill. The clan chief truly is absent, Yao Lan said, his expression becoming extremely grim. Not only the clan chief, but all the core elders have also left. At the worst possible moment, the clan chief and the core elders had departed from the Yao clan together with the visiting demon saint. Yao Qing's face turned deathly pale. Elder Yao Lan had also taught her introductory alchemy when she was young. She understood his character well. He would never deceive her about something like this. Yao Lan moved his fingers in silent calculation. Even if they immediately sent a message by messenger hawk to request the clan chief's authorization, receiving an answer would require at least 2 days. Once the hidden force of the twin Yin life-severing palm erupted, the victim normally had no more than 6 hours to live. Take me to Yao Hua, he said. I will see whether there is a way to preserve his life temporarily. Yao Hua had once been one of his most promising students. Yao Lan could not remain uninvolved. When he entered the Yao residence, he saw Yao Hua lying motionless upon the bed. Blood still flowed from the corner of his mouth. Its color had changed from bright red to black, making the sinister Yin energy within his body obvious at a glance. Feed him these immediately. Yao Lan removed every healing pill he carried. Several were valuable 5th-tier medicines, yet he offered them without hesitation. Unfortunately, they could only delay the complete eruption of the sinister Do Qi. Although Yao Lan was an elder, he was merely an academy elder. His authority was far below that of the clan's true governing elders. Furthermore, because he was naturally generous and had spent most of his resources on his students, he did not possess a 6th-tier pill. This will not work, Yao Lan said after carefully examining Yao Hua's pulse. These pills will allow him to survive for only 1 more day. His body has already reached the limit of what 5th-tier medicine can accomplish. Giving him more will have no effect. However, several supreme medicinal ingredients might preserve his life for a little longer. Yao Lan wrote down a list of rare ingredients that could temporarily sustain Yao Hua. His brow remained tightly furrowed. There was something he did not say. He could not bring himself to say it in front of the family. Every ingredient listed on the paper could be described as an extremely rare treasure. Obtaining them would be difficult. In truth, it would be almost impossible. I will ask others for the medicine, Yao Qing said. I will remain here, Yao Lan replied. The 2 of you should go together. He glanced toward Yao Chen. Yao Qing nodded, lifted her son into her arms, and rushed outside once again. Held against his mother's chest, Yao Chen listened to the wind roaring around them. The tear marks upon his face had already dried. It felt as though his tears had also been completely exhausted. He desperately wanted to cry, yet nothing emerged from his eyes. He wanted to ask his mother whether his father would survive. But he did not dare to speak. He was afraid to make even the slightest sound. His mother's face had never looked so pale. Yao Chen feared that if he spoke, she might suddenly collapse just as his father had. Yao Qing first hurried to the Zhua family. The Zhua family was an alchemical household that had attached itself to the Yao clan several centuries earlier. Some members of the Zhua family also served as iron guards. Although they had not been especially close with Yao Hua, they could still be considered his comrades. The Zhua family did not refuse Yao Qing simply because she was an ordinary clanswoman. They welcomed her politely and brought out several medicinal ingredients. However, they were not the ingredients she needed. The materials were rare healing treasures, but in Yao Hua's current condition, they would provide no benefit. Yao Qing could only thank them and leave to search elsewhere. The Zhua family calmly watched Yao Qing and Yao Chen depart. Yao Chen said nothing. He merely pressed his lips together and observed everything. After leaving the Zhua family, they visited the Li family. Like the Zhua family, the Li family expressed sympathy. However, they could not provide even one of the medicinal ingredients capable of preserving Yao Hua's life. Yao Qing, listen to my advice, the head of the Li family said quietly. Do not waste any more time. Go directly to the clan treasury and beg them for help. The ingredients written on this list are not things families like ours can possess. Only those people might have stored medicines of that level. He glanced at Yao Chen, and a trace of compassion appeared within him. When escorting the mother and son outside, he spoke in a voice so quiet that it was almost inaudible. Then he turned and walked away. Yao Qing's gaze flickered. She bit her lip. Those ingredients were incomparably precious, but obtaining them should not be difficult for the mighty Yao clan. The clan treasury certainly contained several of them. However, without authorization from the clan chief or a core elder, no one would dare remove such treasures. Come. We will go to the direct bloodline. Only the words unfathomably deep could begin to describe the direct bloodline's position within the Yao clan. Apart from the clan treasury, only the various households of the direct line might privately possess the supreme ingredients on Yao Lan's list. The other branch families were different. Even if they obtained a treasure of that level, they would normally submit it to the clan treasury in exchange for merit, cultivation methods, or dough techniques that could strengthen their households. Even if someone kept such an ingredient, they would preserve it as a family heirloom. Why would they surrender it easily? Sympathy was one thing. Cutting away part of one's own flesh to save another person was something entirely different. How many people truly possessed that degree of selflessness? Elder Yao Lan did. Yet it was precisely because he constantly gave away his resources that he had remained near the bottom of the elder hierarchy for his entire life. The entrance to the direct bloodline was said to be 100 measures high. It was famously difficult to cross. When Yao Qing and Yao Chen visited the branch families, the heads of those households had at least appeared before them. Regardless of whether they could help, they still acknowledged the bonds between members of the same clan. The exalted direct bloodline, however, had never placed ordinary clanspeople in its eyes. "You are here to ask for medicine?" the gatekeeper of the first household sneered. He was even more arrogant than the gatekeeper of the clan chief's residence. "Who do you think you are? The household master is absent. No visitors." Yao Qing had expected this treatment. She could only beg desperately. "Please. I know third brother is inside. I only ask for a chance to speak with him." The gatekeeper hesitated. When he heard Yao Qing refer to the third young master as third brother, he began to worry that she might genuinely possess some connection with him. "Very well. I will ask." Yao Chen watched everything silently. Even his young mind understood that this place might represent his father's final hope. His small fists clenched tightly. After a short while, the gatekeeper stormed back outside. "Leave. The third young master says he does not know you. You caused me to receive a scolding. Go." He drove Yao Qing and Yao Chen away. Still dissatisfied, he slammed the side gate shut with a deafening bang. The first household refused to meet them. Yao Qing bit her lip and proceeded to the second household of the direct bloodline. They did not refuse her at the entrance. The steward politely invited the mother and son inside and even served them tea. However, after hearing that they had come to request medicine, he began speaking evasively. "The people capable of making decisions are not currently at home. I am only a steward. Unfortunately, I am powerless to help. Please escort our guests out." By then, panic had completely overwhelmed Yao Qing. She immediately fell to her knees. Her lips trembled, but she could not force out a single word. She could only plead with tear-filled eyes. Since childhood, apart from kneeling before her parents and during clan ceremonies, when had she ever knelt before another person? "Please do not do this," the steward sighed. "I cannot accept it." Nevertheless, his expression remained unmoved. Once again, he repeated that he was powerless to help and had the mother and son escorted outside. A cold wind swept fallen leaves across the road. The indifference of the world could not have been displayed more clearly. Yao Qing smiled bitterly. "Chenner, let us return home." "Mother." Yao Chen's voice sounded like two stones striking together inside a dying fire. "What about the medicinal ingredients? We will return first and think of another method. Perhaps the clan chief and the elders will come back before dawn." Yao Qing suppressed the grief within her heart and spoke gently to her son. "All right." Yao Chen's unease had reached its limit. Yet he could do nothing. He was capable of nothing. He lowered his head and looked at his small fists. Power. If he possessed overwhelming power, who would dare shut their doors against his mother and him? Yao Clan turned and looked back at the residences of the direct bloodline. Night had already begun to descend. Wind lanterns illuminated the magnificent estates, making them radiate a strength called splendor beneath the darkness. Yao Clan tightened his fists. A single vow formed inside his heart. When he grew older, he would become someone of great importance. He would become powerful. He would become so powerful that no one could ever ignore him. He would make his father and mother proud. When Yao Qing and Yao Chen returned home, Elder Yao Lan was refining medicine. Uncle Luo Bing and a group of Yao Hua's companions were also present. You could not obtain the ingredients? Yao Lan sighed. He formed a pill seal with his hands. 5 pills flew from the medicinal cauldron and landed inside the porcelain bottle he held. He turned toward Yao Qing. These 5 pills will allow him to survive until dawn. Do not give them to him immediately. Wait until he regains consciousness. Then feed him one. Give him another every 2 hours afterward. I have already sent a message by Hawk. If fortune favors us, perhaps the clan chief and the others will. Yao Lan shook his head. I am returning to the academy. He had already done everything within his power. He could no longer bear to remain there and watch. Thank you for granting us this medicine, Elder Yao Lan. I will remember your kindness for the rest of my life. Yao Qing knelt in gratitude. After enduring the humiliation of begging for medicine throughout the clan, her emotions upon seeing Elder Yao Lan's wholehearted effort could not be expressed through words. Chana kneel. Yao Chen immediately knelt beside his mother. Luo Bing and the other iron guards also dropped heavily to their knees. Their brother's suffering felt like their own. Yet they had no method of helping him. The helpless frustration within their hearts was impossible to describe. A man's knees were said to contain gold. It was not that a man should never kneel. What mattered was the person before whom he knelt and the reason for doing so. What are all of you doing? Yao Lan hurriedly helped Yao Qing and Yao Chen to their feet. Stand up. Does my word no longer carry any authority? Yao Hua was also my student. How could I ignore him? It is merely that my ability is insufficient. Elder Yao Lan shook his head and left helplessly. Luo Bing and the others stood up and looked silently at Yao Qing and Yao Chen. They had also spent the day asking everywhere for medicinal ingredients. The connections possessed by the Iron Guards were considerable, and they had obtained numerous healing materials. Unfortunately, those ingredients were too limited. Their effects against the sinister Do Qi of the twin Yin life-severing palm were negligible. Only after Elder Yao Lan personally refined them had they managed to produce 5 pills capable of prolonging Yao Hua's life. Everyone, please return home, Yao Qing said with a sigh. I will never forget your concern. She forced out the ugliest smile she had ever shown in her life. Sister-in-law? Luo Bing shook his head. Let us go. Everyone understood that Yao Hua did not have much time remaining. They wanted to help but lacked the power to do anything. All they could offer was the remaining time to Yao Hua and his family. After everyone departed, a faint greenish pallor suddenly spread across Yao Qing's already white face. She could no longer support herself. She collapsed beside the bed and tightly grasped Yao Hua's arm with both hands. Her eyes trembled. Separation between life and death was the greatest agony a person could experience. For an instant, she wanted nothing more than to follow Brother Hua wherever he was going. Mother, do not die. Yao Chen's frightened young voice suddenly came from nearby. Yao Qing trembled. Her tears finally broke through their restraints. Mother will not die. Mother is fine. I am only tired. She forced herself upright. Her body and mind were both completely exhausted. However, when she looked at the small figure of Yao Chen, she knew she had no choice but to remain strong. Mother! Yao Chen rushed forward and tightly clutched her clothing. The room became silent. Outside, the sounds of insects rose through the night. Yao Chen could still hear his father breathing. That faint sound alone prevented everything around him from collapsing. For the first time, Yao Chen truly understood what it meant for someone to be the pillar supporting an entire family. Cough. A sudden cough broke the silence. Father! Yao Chen raised his head. Yao Qing choked back a sob but could not speak. She stepped forward, removed one of the pills elder Yao Lan had refined, and carefully placed it inside Yao Hua's mouth. Yao Hua swallowed. A life-sustaining pill? Yes. Yao Qing's vision blurred again. Hearing her husband's voice caused scalding tears to roll down her cheeks. Channa? Is your mother crying? I cannot see clearly. Mother! I am not crying, Yao Qing said. You promised that you would never make me cry during this lifetime. Therefore, I will not cry. I am fine. Nothing is wrong with me. Yao Hua paused. Chenner, did you practice tonight? Go. Do not return until you have completed 10 full circulation cycles. Yao Qing gently touched Yao Chen's head. She understood that her husband had something he wanted to tell her alone. Yao Chen nodded without fully understanding. He slowly walked outside. Standing in the center of the courtyard, Yao Chen looked toward the sky. The stars, the moon, and the cold wind surrounded him. His body began to tremble. A sharp pain suddenly pierced his heart. The tears he had believed were completely exhausted once again poured from his eyes. Yao Chen wiped them away. He told himself that he would cry only today. On this day, he would shed every tear he was destined to shed throughout his entire life. After today, he would never cry again. He forced himself into meditation and sensed the Do Qi rushing through his body. One circulation cycle followed another. He had only completed half of the required 10 cycles when he heard footsteps near the door. Yao Chen turned his head. His mother was helping his father walk out of the room. Yao Qing beckoned toward him. Chenner, come here. Father. Mother. Yao Hua extended his hand and gently placed it upon Yao Chen's shoulder. Accompany your father to the clan monument. We will go together as a family. All right. Yao Qing turned around and carried Yao Hua upon her back. She began walking toward the summit. One step followed another. Yao Chen followed behind them. He heard his father laugh softly. When I welcomed you into my home, I carried you on my back. Now you are carrying me as you send me away. Do not speak. You are not allowed to speak. Yao Qing's body trembled. Even at a time like this, he still insisted on joking. Yao Chen lowered his head and followed silently. He walked this road every day when attending the clan academy. Never before had each step felt so heavy. It was as though the road possessed a strange power that devoured everything around them. The footsteps suddenly stopped. Yao Chen raised his head. They had arrived before the clan monument. It was already deep into the night, and the plaza was completely empty. Hidden guards were undoubtedly stationed in the darkness. However, anyone who witnessed this scene would understand what was happening and choose not to reveal themselves. At that moment, 2 flames suddenly appeared within Yao Hua's eyes. His entire body instantly became energetic. Yao Qing's expression changed dramatically. She understood that this was the final radiance before death. Yao Hua took the remaining life-sustaining pills and swallowed them all at once. Then he gently pushed Yao Qing away. No one knew where such strength came from within his shattered body. Step by step, he walked toward the clan monument. He extended his hand and touched the stone. Its cold surface carried the weight of an old obsession. Channer! Yao Hua suddenly turned around. Light flickered within his eyes, which could once again see. He forcibly suppressed the pain behind his gaze. Father! Do you know what this is? I know. What is it? Yao Hua insisted that his son speak its name. It is the clan monument. Louder. It is the clan monument. Good. Very good. Yao Hua looked at his son. Chenner, during this lifetime, I was fortunate enough to have a warm and loving wife like your mother. Because of her, I have already lived a satisfying life. I did not live in vain. My only regret is that I never had the opportunity to carve my name upon this monument. While alive, a man should become a hero among men. Even in death, he should remain a hero among ghosts. Chenner, I am placing your father's hope into your hands. Many years ago, my own father stood here and placed the same hope into my hands. I failed to accomplish it. Yao Hua's voice grew weaker. His legs suddenly trembled, and he collapsed onto the ground with his back resting against the clan monument. The light within his eyes rapidly faded. The sinister Do Qi once again gained the advantage within his body. Father! Yao Chen rushed forward and embraced him. Within his young heart, he suddenly understood. The final moment had arrived. I am tired. Let me rest for a while. Yao Hua's rough hand gently brushed across Yao Chen's face. His eyes slowly closed. Then he seemed to remember something. His lips moved faintly. Yao Chen quickly brought his ear closer. His father's barely audible voice entered his ear. Chenner, your mother did not mean to strike you today. In the future, listen to her. You must protect your mother. His voice became fainter with every word. Yao Chen nodded desperately. I will. I promise I will. A pale radiance appeared along the distant horizon. The sun began to rise. His father no longer moved. Yao Chen could no longer hear his breathing. A violent surge of blood and emotion rushed toward Yao Chen's throat. His vision turned black. The Do Qi inside his body erupted into chaos. Crack. The bottleneck that had restrained his cultivation was violently shattered. 7 star. 8 star. 9 star. His cultivation surged uncontrollably. Yao Qing's expression changed. Chenner, stop. She rushed forward and pressed a palm against his body. A sealing force poured into Yao Chen and forcibly suppressed the violent breakthrough. At that moment, she could not allow herself to be consumed by grief. Yao Chen's sudden advancement was not a fortunate event. It was similar to a forbidden technique that released a person's life force in exchange for momentary strength. His instantaneous breakthroughs were consuming the potential of his future. Blessings seldom arrived together. Misfortune, however, never came alone. Time would always remain the greatest medicine for every wound.